"You're not her." The words tore out of Eli Tanner's throat before he could stop them. The woman standing on his porch wasn't plain, wasn't forgettable, wasn't safe. She was everything he'd spent 5 years running from beautiful defiant alive. "I asked for someone different." Josie Callaway's green eyes flashed. "And I asked for a man who kept his word, not a coward hiding behind a mail-order arrangement." The letter crumpled in his fist. This wasn't supposed to happen. He'd ordered protection from feeling anything ever again. Instead, she'd walked straight into his carefully dead heart and set it on fire. Please subscribe to our channel and stay with my story until the end. Comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has traveled. Eli Tanner had made exactly 3 promises to himself after Margaret died. Never love again. Never let anyone close enough to hurt him. Never under any circumstances feel anything that resembled hope. The mail-order bride arrangement was supposed to honor all 3. He'd been specific in his advertisement: plain, practical, past childbearing years preferred. Someone who'd be grateful for a roof and 3 meals, who wouldn't ask questions about the locked room upstairs, or why he sometimes stared at nothing for hours. Someone who'd understand this was a business transaction, nothing more. The woman stepping down from the stagecoach was none of those things. "Mr. Tanner." Her voice carried across the dusty yard like a challenge. "I'm Josie Callaway." Eli's chest tightened. She couldn't be more than 28, with auburn hair escaping from pins that clearly couldn't contain it, and a traveling dress that showed a figure no amount of practical fabric could hide. Worse, far worse, were her eyes. Green and sharp and completely unafraid. "There's been a mistake." The words came out harsher than he intended. Josie's eyebrows lifted. "Only one I see is you standing there with your mouth open instead of helping with my trunk." "I wrote for someone else." "You wrote for a wife." She pulled a letter from her reticule, his own handwriting staring back at him. "Unless this isn't your signature." "I meant." "I know exactly what you meant, Mr. Tanner." She moved past him toward the house, her skirts kicking up dust. "You wanted someone old and desperate. Someone who'd be grateful enough not to expect an actual husband. Someone invisible." "That's not—" "Don't lie to me." She spun, and the force of her gaze nearly knocked him backward. "I read between every careful line in that advertisement. You want a housekeeper, you can legally bed without paying wages. Well, I'm here, and I signed a contract, and I don't break my word, even when the other party clearly misrepresented themselves." Eli's hands clenched. "I never misrepresented. Your letter said you were looking for a companionable arrangement and a peaceful household." Josie's voice dripped acid. "What you meant was, you wanted someone too beaten down by life to bother you. Someone who wouldn't notice you're half dead already." The words hit like a physical blow. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're terrified right now." She stepped closer, close enough that he could smell lavender and determination. "I know you expected someone you could ignore, and I know that the second you saw me, every wall you've built started shaking." "That's true." She turned away. "Where do I put my things?" Eli couldn't move, couldn't think. This wasn't happening. This wasn't Mr. Tanner. Her voice cut through his paralysis. "It's a simple question. Where do I sleep?" "The bedroom upstairs." The words came automatically. "The one on the right." "And you?" "The left." Something flickered in her expression. Satisfaction, maybe, or victory. "Good. I'll need an hour to settle in. Then we should discuss expectations." She disappeared into the house before he could respond, leaving him standing in the yard like a fool, his carefully ordered world crumbling around him. Tom Patterson chose that exact moment to ride up his horse, kicking dust all over Eli's boots. "Well, well." Tom's grin was pure malice. "That the mail-order bride everyone's talking about? Not your business, Tom. Everything in this valley's my business, Tanner, especially when it concerns land I want." Tom leaned forward in his saddle. She's a pretty one. Didn't think you had it in you. Get off my property. Touchy. Tom's eyes drifted toward the house. You know a woman like that needs protecting. All sorts of things can happen out here. Accidents, fires. A man alone can't always keep his wife safe. Eli's hand moved toward his rifle. You threatening me, Patterson? Just stating facts. Tom straightened. You think hard about my offer, Tanner. Sell me that creek access, and maybe your new bride doesn't have to worry about any unfortunate incidents. He rode off before Eli could respond, leaving threats hanging in the air like smoke. Josie's voice came from the doorway. Friend of yours? No. Good. I hate him already. She'd changed into a simpler dress, her hair still fighting its pins. He the reason you need a wife? The question was too sharp, too knowing. What makes you think, please? She crossed her arms. You're a man who clearly wants nothing to do with women suddenly advertising for a bride. Either you need help running this place or you need someone here for appearances. Given that you specifically requested plain and practical, I'm guessing appearances. Eli's jaw tightened. You're too smart for your own good. I'm exactly smart enough, which is why you're going to be honest with me. She descended the porch steps. What's going on, Eli? And don't tell me it's nothing. That man just threatened me, and I've been here less than an hour. Tom Patterson wants my land, specifically the creek that runs through the eastern section. Let me guess you won't sell. It's not about the money. Eli's hands clenched. My father died protecting that water access. I'm not giving it up to some land grabbing. So you got a wife to prove you're establishing roots, making it harder for him to push you out. Josie nodded slowly. Smart. Except you got me instead of whatever comfortable fiction you ordered. This isn't going to work. Why? Because I'm not invisible. She moved closer, and Eli forced himself not to retreat. Because I might actually expect you to treat me like a person, or because you're scared, I might make you feel something. You don't know what you're talking about. Then tell me. Her voice softened just slightly. Tell me why a man who clearly used to care about things stopped caring. Tell me about the locked room upstairs and why you flinched when I mentioned it. Tell me why you're so desperate to feel nothing that you'd marry a stranger just to keep your heart safely dead. Eli's breath caught. The room, how did you? I noticed the lock, and the dust on the handle like no one's touched it in years. Her eyes held his. I'm observant, Eli. Another thing you didn't bargain for. This was a mistake. He turned away. I'll pay your passage back east. You can leave on tomorrow's stage. No. The single word stopped him cold. What? I said no. Josie's voice was steel. I signed a contract. I came here in good faith, and I'm staying. You can't. Can't what hold you to your word? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, I absolutely can. You want a wife for appearances? Fine, you'll get one. But don't expect me to fade into the wallpaper just because you're afraid of living. I'm not afraid. You're terrified. She stepped into his space close enough that he could see gold flecks in her green eyes. You're so scared of losing someone again that you'd rather be alone forever. Well, guess what? I'm here now, and I'm not some ghost you can ignore. You don't understand. Margaret. The name fell between them like a stone. The woman in the photograph on your desk. The one you couldn't quite hide before I came downstairs. Eli's world tilted. How dare you? I'm observant, remember. Josie's voice gentled. And I'm sorry. Whatever happened to her, I'm sorry. But Eli, she's gone. And you're still here. You're still alive whether you want to be or not. Stop. No. She caught his arm when he tried to turn away. I came here for a reason too. I'm not running from someone I loved and lost. I'm running from someone who never loved me at all. A man who saw me as property. who thought he owned me because his family had money and mine didn't. Eli froze. Who? It doesn't matter. What matters is, I came here looking for something real. Maybe not love, I know better than to expect that. But partnership, respect, a chance to build something that's mine. Her grip tightened. So here's the deal, Eli Tanner. You want appearances, I'll give them to you. But in return, you treat me like an equal. You let me work beside you. You don't hide me away or pretend I don't exist. And you stop looking at me like I'm going to destroy you just by being here. And if I can't, then we both lose. She released his arm. Your land goes to Tom Patterson, and I go back to a world where women like me don't get second chances. Eli stared at her, this impossible woman who'd walked into his life and immediately seen through every defense he'd spent 5 years building. She should terrify him. She did terrify him, but she was also right. Oh, 1 month, he heard himself say. We try this for 1 month. If it doesn't work, it'll work. Josie's smile was sudden and brilliant. You'll see. She was wrong. She had to be wrong. But as she turned back toward the house, already listing repairs that needed doing and meals that needed planning, Eli felt something shift in his chest. Something he'd thought was permanently dead. It felt dangerously like hope. That night, Eli lay in bed and listened to Josie move around in the room across the hall. Not Margaret's room that stayed locked, but close enough that he could hear every footstep, every breath. Close enough to remind him he wasn't alone anymore. The thought should have been terrifying. Instead, it was almost comforting. He was in so much trouble. The next morning, Josie was already in the kitchen when Eli came downstairs, flour on her cheek and determination in her eyes. We need chickens, she announced. And the fence in the north pasture is a disgrace. Also, your coffee is terrible. Eli blinked. Good morning to you too. Is it? She gestured at the stove. Because this thing barely heats, and I found a family of mice in your pantry, and I'm fairly certain that roof leak has been there since before I was born. I've been managing fine. You've been surviving. There's a difference. She poured him coffee somehow better than anything he'd made in 5 years. Drink that. Then show me the property. If I'm going to be Mrs. Tanner, I need to know exactly what I'm working with. Josie. That's my name. Use it. She met his eyes. And stop looking for reasons this won't work. Start looking for reasons it might. Eli took the coffee. It was perfect. He was in so much trouble. They spent the morning riding the property line, Josie asking sharp questions about water access and grazing rotation and why certain sections looked neglected. She noticed everything. The broken gate, the missing fence posts, the places where Tom Patterson's cattle had clearly crossed onto Eli's land. He's testing you, she said, pointing at fresh hoofprints. Seeing how much he can get away with. I know. And what? Eli's jaw tightened. I can't watch every inch of fence every day. No, but we can. Josie turned to him. That's what you're missing, Eli. You've been trying to do this alone, but you're not alone anymore. For 1 month. For as long as it takes. She kicked her horse forward. Now show me that creek he wants so badly. I want to understand what we're fighting for. We. The word lodged in Eli's chest like a splinter. When they reached the creek, Josie dismounted and walked along the bank, her expression thoughtful. It's beautiful, she said finally. And strategic. Whoever controls this controls half the valley's water. My father knew that. It's why he wouldn't sell. And it's why Tom Patterson will keep pushing. She turned to face him. This isn't going to stop Eli. You know that, right? He'll escalate. I can handle Patterson. Can you? Josie's voice was quiet. Or have you been so busy surviving that you've forgotten how to actually fight? The question cut deep. Too deep. I haven't forgotten anything. Haven't you? She moved closer. When's the last time you cared enough about something to really fight for it? Not just defend it. Fight for it. Eli's hands clenched. You don't understand. Then help me understand. Josie's eyes searched his. Because right now, all I see is a man who's given up on everything except keeping his heart safely locked away. And Eli, that's not living. That's just waiting to die. Maybe that's all I've got left. I don't believe that. She caught his hand the first time she'd touched him on purpose, and the contact sent electricity through his veins. I think you're scared. I think losing Margaret broke something in you. But I also think there's still a man in there who wants more than this half-life you've built. You're wrong. Am I? She held his gaze. Then why did you send for a bride at all? Why not just sell to Patterson and walk away? Why keep fighting for something you claim not to care about? Eli had no answer. Or rather, he had answers he wasn't ready to face. Josie seemed to understand. She released his hand, the loss of contact almost painful. Think about it, she said. And while you're thinking, I'm going to fix your fence. She rode off before he could protest, leaving him standing by the creek with questions he'd spent 5 years avoiding. That afternoon, Eli found Josie in the north pasture wrestling with fence posts and wire like she'd been doing it her whole life. Where did you learn to do that? He asked. My father had a farm. Small, but it was ours. She didn't look up. Until the bank took it. That's when I learned that sometimes you lose things no matter how hard you fight. Is that why you answered my advertisement? Part of it. She straightened, wiping sweat from her forehead. Also because I was tired of being treated like decorative furniture. At least here I get to be useful. You could have married someone who actually wanted... What love? She laughed. Eli, I'm 28 and broke. The men who wanted to marry me either wanted a servant or a showpiece. You at least were honest about it being a business arrangement. Except you're not what I asked for. No, I'm better. She met his eyes. And you're going to figure that out whether you want to or not. The confidence in her voice should have annoyed him. Instead, it made something warm uncurl in his chest. He picked up a fence post. Show me how you want this done. Josie's smile could have lit the entire valley. Now you're learning. They worked until sunset, and Eli couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this present. Alive. Like what he was doing actually mattered. It was terrifying. It was intoxicating. It was everything he'd been trying to avoid. That evening over dinner, Josie had somehow coaxed into being something better than edible Tom Patterson rode up again. This time, he brought friends. Eli was out the door before Josie could stop him, rifle in hand, facing 3 mounted men who had no business on his property after dark. Evening, Tanner. Tom Patterson's voice carried that same oily confidence. Thought we'd come by and welcome your new bride proper-like. Get off my land. Now that's no way to treat neighbors. Tom gestured to the men flanking him, brothers, from the look of them both carrying guns they weren't bothering to hide. We just wanted to make sure the lady knows how things work around here. Josie appeared beside Eli, and he cursed under his breath. I told you to stay inside. I don't take orders well. She faced Tom without flinching. And I already know how things work. You want land that isn't yours, and you're trying to intimidate us into selling. Tom's smile widened. Smart one, ain't she? That's good. Smart women know when to convince their husbands to make reasonable decisions. Reasonable? Josie's laugh was sharp. There's nothing reasonable about threatening people who won't bend to bullies. One of the brothers shifted in his saddle hand, moving toward his gun. Eli's rifle came up before the man could blink. Don't. Eli's voice was dead calm. Just don't. Easy, Tanner. Tom held up a hand. We're just talking here. No need for violence. Then talk from your own property. Eli kept the rifle steady. You've got 3 seconds before I decide you're trespassing with intent. You don't want to make an enemy of me. Tom's voice hardened. Not with a pretty wife to worry about now. Josie stepped forward, and Eli's heart stopped. Is that a threat, Mr. Patterson? Just facts, ma'am. Accidents happen. Fires start. Women get hurt when their men can't protect them. My husband can protect me just fine. Josie's voice was ice. And I can protect myself. So maybe you should consider that before you ride onto our land making threats you can't back up. Tom's eyes narrowed. You sure you want to tie yourself to a losing proposition Tanner here's been barely hanging on for years? One bad season, one unfortunate incident, and this place folds. Then where will you be? Right here. Josie didn't hesitate. Fighting beside my husband, because that's what wives do when they're not cowards. The insult landed like a slap. Tom's face flushed dark red. You got a mouth on you, woman. And you've got about 2 seconds before my husband shoots you for threatening me on my own property. Josie crossed her arms. Your choice. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Tom laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're gonna regret this, Tanner. Both of you. He wheeled his horse around. Real soon. They rode off, and Eli finally let himself breathe. Then he rounded on Josie. What were you thinking he could have? What shot me with you standing right there? She met his fury without backing down. I was thinking that bullies only respect strength, and if we show weakness now, we're finished. You could have been killed. So could you. She grabbed his arm. Eli, we're in this together, remember? You don't get to shield me from danger and expect me to play the helpless wife. That's not who I am. I don't need you getting yourself killed trying to prove something. And I don't need you trying to protect me like I'm fragile. Her grip tightened. I came here knowing there might be trouble. I'm not afraid of Tom Patterson or his threats. But I am afraid of you shutting me out the second things get dangerous. Eli stared at her, this woman who'd been here less than 2 days and was already turning his world inside out. You're insane. Maybe, but I'm your wife now, insane or not. She released him. So either trust me to stand beside you, or this whole arrangement falls apart before it starts. He wanted to argue, wanted to lock her in the house where she'd be safe, wanted to send her back east before Tom made good on his threats, but the set of her jaw told him none of that would work. Fine, the word came out rough. But if Patterson comes back, we handle it together. Josie's voice softened. That's the deal, Eli. All of it. Together. Something in his chest cracked, just a little, just enough to hurt. They didn't speak as they went back inside, but Eli caught her hand at the door just for a second and squeezed. She squeezed back. It was the most honest moment they'd shared. The next 3 days passed in a blur of hard work and harder silences. Josie threw herself into fixing everything Eli had let fall apart, and he found himself working beside her without quite knowing how it happened. They mended fences, repaired the chicken coop she'd insisted they needed, patched the roof leak that had been dripping for 2 years. She didn't complain, didn't slow down, didn't let him retreat behind his walls. It was exhausting. It was exactly what he needed. On the 4th morning, Eli woke to the smell of fresh bread and realized Josie had been up since before dawn baking enough to last them a week. You didn't have to do this, he said, watching her pull another loaf from the oven. I wanted to. She wiped flour from her hands. Besides, your old bread tasted like leather. I couldn't stand another day of it. My bread was fine. Your bread was terrible, and you know it. She cut him a thick slice still warm. Try that, and tell me I'm wrong. He took a bite. It was perfect, soft, and rich, and nothing like anything he'd managed in 5 years. It's adequate, he said. Josie's laugh filled the kitchen. You're a terrible liar, Eli Tanner. And you're too pleased with yourself. Someone has to be pleased around here. You certainly aren't. She sat across from him. When's the last time you enjoyed anything? The question caught him off guard. I enjoy things. Name one. He opened his mouth, closed it. Couldn't think of a single answer that wasn't a lie. Josie's expression gentled. That's what I thought. Don't psychoanalyze me before breakfast. Then don't make it so easy. She poured him coffee again, somehow better than his. Eli, I'm not trying to fix you, but I am trying to remind you that life isn't supposed to be something you just endure. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? She met his eyes. I spent 3 years engaged to a man who treated me like a prize horse, something to parade around and show off, but never actually listen to or care about. Every day was just getting through until the next day. Is that so different from what you've been doing? That's not. It's exactly the same. She leaned forward. You're going through motions, Eli. Surviving instead of living. And I get it, I do. Losing someone you love breaks something fundamental. But staying broken forever, that's a choice. You think I chose this? I think you're choosing it every single day. You refuse to let yourself feel anything. Her voice was gentle but uncompromising. And I think you got me, instead of your safe, invisible bride, because some part of you wanted to be forced back into living. That's ridiculous. Is it? She stood. Then why haven't you sent me away? You could. You know you could. Pay my passage, dissolve the contract, go back to your comfortable misery. But you haven't. Eli had no answer. Because she was right, and they both knew it. Josie smiled, small and sad and understanding. Think about it. I'm going to check the chickens. She left him sitting there with perfect bread and questions he didn't want to face. That afternoon, the first fire started. Eli smelled smoke before he saw flames, and his blood went cold. The barn. Tom Patterson had made good on his threats. He ran Josie right behind him, despite his shout for her to stay back, and found the southwest corner blazing. Not enough to destroy everything yet, but enough to send a message. Water! Josie was already moving, grabbing buckets, organizing without panic. Eli, the well. They worked together, bucket brigade between them, fighting flames that wanted to spread to dry hay and old wood. Eli's lungs burned, his hands blistered. But Josie never stopped, never slowed, matching him bucket for bucket until the fire finally died. When it was over, they stood in the wreckage, smoke-stained and exhausted, staring at charred wood and destroyed supplies. Patterson, Eli said. The name was a curse. We can't prove it. I don't need proof. He turned away. I'm going to kill him. No, Josie caught his arm. That's exactly what he wants. You go after him, you're the one who ends up dead or in jail. Then where am I? Safe, without a target on your back because of me. I don't want safe. She moved in front of him, forcing him to look at her. I want you alive. I want us to actually fight this the right way. There is no right way. Patterson plays dirty and he's got money and men. We've got nothing. We've got each other. She grabbed his face, her hands still grimy from smoke. Eli, listen to me. We report this. We get the sheriff involved. We make this official. The sheriff's in Patterson's pocket. Then we go over his head. We document everything. We make so much noise that Patterson can't make us disappear quietly. Her eyes blazed. But we do it smart. We do it together. And we don't let him turn you into a murderer. Josie, I won't lose you to this. Her voice cracked. I won't. You hear me? I just found someone worth fighting for. I'm not giving that up because some land-grabbing coward wants to scare us into submission. The words hung between them, raw and honest and terrifying. You barely know me, Eli said. I know enough. She didn't let go. I know you're stubborn and broken and so scared of caring about anything that you'd rather die than risk it. But I also know you're worth saving, even if you don't believe it. Something in Eli's chest shattered. Why? Because someone has to. She released him slowly. And apparently, I'm fool enough to think I can. He should push her away. Should tell her she was wasting her time on a dead man walking. Should protect her from the disaster he'd become. Instead, he kissed her. It wasn't planned. Wasn't thought through. He just needed her to know. Needed her to understand that somewhere under all the death and fear and carefully constructed walls, there was still something alive enough to want this. To want her. Josie made a small sound of surprise, then kissed him back with a fierceness that stole his breath. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Eli forgot about fires and threats, and every reason this was a terrible idea. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Josie's eyes were wet. "Don't you dare apologize," she said. "I wasn't going to." "Good." She wiped her eyes. "Because if you try to tell me that was a mistake, or meant nothing, I'll shoot you myself." Despite everything, Eli almost smiled. "Noted. We're going to get through this." She squeezed his hand. "All of it. Patterson, the ranch, your walls, everything." "You sound sure." "I am sure." She pulled him toward the house. "Now come on. We need to clean up and figure out our next move before he tries something worse." But as they walked, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that worse was already coming. He was right. The second fire came 3 days later, this time targeting the hay storage. Then the north fence was cut in 6 places, letting Eli's cattle wander onto Patterson land where they were impounded for trespassing. Then the well was fouled with something that made the water undrinkable for a week. Each incident was small. Each could be explained as accident or coincidence. But together they painted a clear picture. Tom Patterson was systematically destroying them. "We need help," Josie said after the 4th incident. "We can't keep fighting this alone." "There's no one to help." Eli stared at the damaged fence. "Everyone in town either works for Patterson or is too scared to cross him." "Then we find someone who isn't scared." She crossed her arms. "There has to be someone. Who? The sheriff won't act without proof we don't have. The other ranchers won't risk their own land, and anyone we hire becomes Patterson's next target. So we just give up." "I didn't say that." "Then what are you saying?" Josie's frustration finally showed. "Because every day it's something new and we're barely keeping ahead of it. How long before he escalates to something we can't fix? How long before someone gets hurt?" "I don't know." The admission tasted like failure. "But sending you away would—" "Don't!" Her voice went sharp. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. I'm not leaving Eli. Not now. Not ever. So stop looking for ways to push me out and start figuring out how we actually win this." "What if we can't win?" The question hung heavy between them. Josie was quiet for a long moment. "Then we lose together," she said finally. "But at least we lose fighting. At least we don't give him the satisfaction of breaking us without a real battle." Eli studied her, this woman who'd walked into his death of a life and refused to let him stay buried. She was right. She'd been right about everything. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Okay, we fight. Really fight. No more just defending. No more waiting for Patterson's next move." He met her eyes. "We go after him." Josie's smile was fierce. "Now you're talking. What's the plan?" "I have no idea." "Well, that's a start." She grabbed his hand. "Come on, let's figure it out together." As they walked back to the house, planning and scheming and probably dooming themselves, Eli realized something terrifying. He cared. About the ranch, about the fight, about winning, about her. And Tom Patterson was going to pay for making him feel that again. The plan came together over cold coffee and desperation. Josie spread out a hand-drawn map of the valley on the kitchen table, marking every piece of land Patterson owned or wanted. "Here's what we know," she said, tapping the paper. "He needs your creek access to expand his operation. Without it, he's landlocked on the eastern side. So he's been buying up everything around you, boxing you in. But he made a mistake." She traced a line. "The Hutchinson property. He tried to buy it 6 months ago, and they refused." Eli leaned closer. "Old man Hutchinson hates me. Has for years." "Why?" "I may have broken his daughter's heart when we were 17. Josie's eyebrow lifted. "Of course you did. It was a long time ago." "Doesn't matter. He still hates you, which means he definitely hates Patterson for trying to steal his land." She looked up. That's our opening. We make an alliance. Hutchinson would rather spit on me than help me. Good thing I'm charming then. Josie stood. We ride over there tomorrow. Together. I'll do the talking. Josie. Do you have a better plan? He didn't. That was the problem. They left at dawn, Josie in her best dress, Eli trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. The Hutchinson Ranch sat 3 hours north, and every mile made Eli's gut tighter. Stop worrying, Josie said. I can hear you thinking from here. This won't work. It will if you let me handle it. She glanced at him. You're good at a lot of things, Eli. Diplomacy isn't one of them. I'm fine at... You once told a circuit judge his ruling was idiotic, to his face, in court. It was idiotic. See? Not diplomatic. She smiled. Just trust me. Trust. The word still felt foreign. But watching her sit tall in the saddle, determination in every line of her body, Eli found himself believing she could pull this off. They were halfway there when the shots rang out. Eli threw himself sideways, pulling Josie down with him as bullets tore through the air where they'd been seconds before. They hit the ground hard, horses scattering, and Eli covered Josie's body with his own. Stay down, he growled. Where are they? She wasn't screaming, wasn't panicking, just assessing. Ridge, east side. Another shot kicked up dirt inches from his head. 3, maybe 4 shooters. Patterson. Who else? Eli pulled his rifle from the saddle strap, thanking God he'd brought it. When I say run, you run for those rocks. Don't look back. Don't stop. I'm not leaving you. Josie. No. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. We do this together or not at all. Those are the rules. You could die. So could you. She pulled her own pistol, where had she been hiding that, and checked the chamber. Now stop arguing and tell me the plan. There was no time. The shooters were moving, trying to flank them. Eli made a split-second decision. Suppressing fire on 3. We move together to those rocks, then reassess. Ready. Josie nodded, her hand steady on the gun. 1, 2, 3. They moved as one. Eli firing toward the ridge while Josie ran, then switching as she covered him. Bullets whined past. Eli felt one tug at his sleeve, but they made it to the rocks, breathing hard, alive. You okay? Eli checked her for wounds. Fine. You? Fine. He peered around the rocks. 4 men definitely, spreading out, trying to surround them. This is bad. How bad? We're pinned. If they get around us. They won't. Josie's voice was pure steel. Because you're going to circle left while I keep them busy here. Take out the flankers, then we handle the rest together. I'm not leaving you alone. You're not. You're trusting me to hold them off while you even the odds. She met his eyes. This is what we do, Eli. We trust each other. Now go. Everything in him screamed not to. But she was right, and they both knew it. Don't die, he said. Same to you. She kissed him hard and fast. Now move. Eli moved, using the terrain to stay low, working his way around. Behind him, Josie opened fire, deliberate shots that kept the ambushers focused on her position. His heart was in his throat the whole time. The first flanker never saw him coming. Eli took him down with a rifle butt to the head, then took his gun. The second heard something and turned, but Eli was faster. The man went down hard. That's when the barn exploded. Not literally, but close enough. The old Patterson line shack they'd been using for cover erupted in flames, and Eli's blood went cold. Someone had circled around them. Someone had Josie's scream cut through everything. Eli ran, abandoning cover, abandoning caution. He rounded the rocks and saw her pinned beneath a burning beam that had fallen from the shack's roof, smoke everywhere, flames spreading fast. "Get back!" she shouted. "Eli, it's a trap!" He saw the trap. Saw the remaining shooters waiting for him to break cover. Didn't care. Eli charged straight through their line, taking a bullet to the shoulder that spun him halfway around. He kept moving. Another shot grazed his ribs. He reached Josie and heaved the beam off his shoulder, screaming, muscles tearing. "Can you walk?" "I think so, Eli, behind you?" He spun rifle coming up and shot the man, aiming at Josie's head. The body fell. 2 more shapes in the smoke. Eli fired twice. Silence. Then Tom Patterson's voice cut through the haze. "Impressive, Tanner. Real heroic. But you're bleeding out and she's half crushed. How long you think you can last?" Eli pulled Josie to her feet, keeping her behind him. His shoulder was on fire, ribs worse, and he could feel blood soaking through his shirt. "Long enough." "I don't think so." Patterson stepped into view, gun drawn. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign over that creek access. Then you're going to leave the valley, and your pretty wife gets to live." "Go to hell." "Wrong answer." Patterson's gun shifted toward Josie. "Maybe I didn't make myself clear. Sign or I shoot her right now." Eli's world narrowed to that gun, that threat, that impossible choice. "You shoot her, I kill you." "Maybe, but she's still dead." Patterson smiled. "And you get to live with that, just like you lived with losing Margaret." The name was a knife. Josie stiffened behind him. "Oh, you didn't tell her?" Patterson's smile widened. "About how Margaret died because you weren't there. How you were too busy drinking in town to hear her calling for help when the fever took her. That's why you locked up her room, isn't it? Can't face the guilt." "Shut up." Eli's voice was barely human. "Truth hurts, doesn't it?" Patterson moved closer. "You killed Margaret with your neglect. You planning to kill this one too? Or are you finally going to make the smart choice?" Josie's hand found Eli's back, pressed there. Steady. Present. "He's lying," she said quietly. "Whatever he's saying, he's lying." "Am I?" Patterson laughed. "Ask him. Ask him if he was home when Margaret needed him. Ask him if he heard her calling his name before she died alone." Eli couldn't breathe. The words were poison, but they were also truth. He hadn't been there. He'd been in town drinking away his grief over his father's death, and when he came home, Margaret was gone. "Eli." Josie's voice cut through the spiral. "Look at me." He couldn't. If he looked at her, she'd see the truth. She'd see that Patterson was right, that Eli destroyed everything he touched. "Eli." Firmer now. "Look. At. Me." He turned. Her face was smoke-stained, her dress torn, her eyes fierce. "Whatever happened with Margaret," she said, "wasn't your fault. You hear me? People die. Fevers kill. And you can't save everyone, no matter how much you love them. You don't understand. I understand that this man is trying to break you by using your grief as a weapon." She stepped around him, putting herself between Eli and Patterson's gun. "And I'm not letting him." "Josie, move." "No." She faced Patterson. "You want to shoot someone? Shoot me. But you're not getting that land. Not today. Not ever." "Brave." Patterson's gun didn't waver. "And stupid. Your husband's half dead on his feet. You think he can save you? I think we save each other." Josie's voice rang out. "That's what you don't understand, Patterson. You're so busy trying to break us apart. You miss that we're stronger together than either of us ever was alone." Pretty words. Won't stop bullets. "No, but this will." Josie pulled something from her pocket, the deed to the ranch. "You want this land? Come and take it." She threw it into the flames behind them. Patterson's face went purple. "You insane?" "Without the deed, you've got nothing," Josie said. "No legal claim. No proof of ownership if Eli dies. Just another dead rancher and a grieving widow who'll make so much noise about her husband's murder that you'll never be able to touch this property without every lawman in 3 territories investigating. I'll kill you both right now. And prove my point." She laughed wild and fierce. "Go ahead, make martyrs of us. See how fast this valley turns against you when everyone knows you burned us alive for refusing to sell." Patterson's hand shook. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Josie took Eli's hand, her fingers threading through his despite the blood and smoke. "We've got nothing left to lose, Patterson. But you lose everything if this goes wrong. Your reputation, your expansion plans, maybe even your freedom if the law decides to actually investigate for once." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Patterson lowered his gun. "This isn't over." "No," Eli said, finding his voice. "It's not, but you're done here. Today. Now." Patterson's laugh was ugly. "You think you won, I'll destroy you. Slowly. Piece by piece, and this time I won't leave witnesses." He disappeared into the smoke, and moments later, hoofbeats faded into the distance. Josie's knees buckled. Eli caught her, both of them going down together, holding each other, as the adrenaline drained and reality crashed in. "You're hurt," Josie said, her hands finding his wounds. "So are you." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You had a burning beam on you." Eli pulled back enough to see her face. "What were you thinking, putting yourself between me and his gun? What were you thinking, charging through gunfire to save me? That's different." "How?" Her eyes blazed. "Because you're the husband. Because you're supposed to protect me while I stand back and let you die." "Yes." "Well, that's not how this works." Josie grabbed his shirt. "I told you from the start we're partners. That means I get to save you as much as you save me. That means I get to take stupid risks for you, just like you take them for me. And if you don't like it, then—" He kissed her, hard and desperate and full of everything he'd been too scared to feel. She kissed him back with equal ferocity, both of them tasting smoke and blood and survival. When they finally broke apart, Eli's forehead rested against hers. "I was there," he said. "When Margaret died, I was there." Josie went very still. "I wasn't in town. I was home. I held her hand while the fever took her, and I begged her not to leave, and she died anyway." The words cracked coming out. Patterson twisted it, made it sound like I failed her. But the truth is worse. I did everything right and she still died. And I couldn't save her. "Eli, I locked that room because I couldn't stand looking at the place where I watched someone I loved die. Because every time I walked past it, I remembered being helpless." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "And then you showed up, and I knew if I let myself care about you, I'd have to face that helplessness all over again. Because I can't protect you from everything. I can't guarantee I won't lose you, and that terrifies me more than anything Patterson could ever do." Josie's hands framed his face. "You're right. You can't protect me from everything. You can't guarantee we'll both survive whatever comes next." She smiled through tears. "But Eli, that's life. That's what it means to actually live instead of just existing. You take the risk. You love people knowing you might lose them, because the alternative is this half-dead, locked away, too scared to feel anything real." "I don't know if I can." "You already are." She kissed him softly. "You came through gunfire for me. You put yourself between me and danger without hesitation. You're already all in Eli. You just haven't admitted it yet." He wanted to argue, wanted to find reasons why she was wrong. But the truth was undeniable. He loved her. Terrifying and impossible and absolutely true. "We need to get out of here," he said instead, "before Patterson comes back with more men." "Agreed. Can you ride? Can you?" They helped each other up, both wounded, both smoke-damaged, both alive. The horses had scattered, but Josie whistled, and somehow they came back. Of course they did. Nothing about this woman made sense. "The deed," Eli said as they mounted. "You actually burned it." "Of course not. I threw an old receipt from my pocket. She pulled the real deed from inside her bodice. But he was too angry to notice the difference. Despite everything, Eli laughed. You're terrifying. I'm practical. She winced as her injuries protested the movement. And we still need to get to Hutchinson's place. This doesn't change the plan. Are you insane? We're both hurt. Patterson just tried to kill us. Which is exactly why we need allies now more than ever. Josie kicked her horse forward. Come on, we've got work to do. Eli followed, because what else could he do? This woman had walked into his death of a life and dragged him back to living, and now she was injured and determined and completely right about everything. He was doomed, absolutely completely doomed. And for the first time in 5 years, that felt like the beginning of something instead of the end. They reached Hutchinson's ranch an hour later, both barely staying in the saddle. The old man took one look at them and called for his daughter. What happened? Sarah Hutchinson, older now, but still sharp-eyed, appeared in the doorway. Patterson happened, Josie said. And we need help. Hutchinson's face went hard. He's been pushing on my borders too. I told him to go to hell. Then we have a common enemy. Josie swayed, and Eli caught her. And a proposal. But first, could someone please help with these wounds before I pass out and ruin my dramatic moment? Sarah laughed, despite everything. I always did like her better than you, she told Eli. Everyone does, he said, and realized it was true. As they stumbled inside, Eli caught Josie's hand. She squeezed back, and that simple gesture said everything words couldn't. They were in this together. Whatever came next, they'd face it side by side. And Tom Patterson was going to learn exactly what happened when you tried to break people who'd already survived being broken. Sarah Hutchinson worked quickly, her hands steady as she cleaned Josie's wounds. Eli sat across the kitchen table, his shoulder wrapped tight, watching Hutchinson Sr. pace by the window. Patterson tried to burn you out, the old man said. Not a question. Tried to kill us. Josie winced as Sarah probed a particularly nasty burn. 4 gunmen. Ambush on the North Road. He's getting desperate. Hutchinson turned his weathered face hard. Which means he's close to whatever he's really after. Eli's head snapped up. What do you mean really after? You think this is just about your creek? Hutchinson laughed without humor. Boy, you're missing the bigger picture. Then enlighten me. There's a railroad survey crew been through the valley twice in 3 months. Hutchinson moved to the table, spreading out his own map. They've been measuring, testing, soil checking water sources, and every piece of land they've shown interest in, Patterson's been buying it up. Josie's eyes widened. He knows the railroad's coming through. More than that, Sarah spoke up, finishing Josie's bandage. He knows exactly where the depot's going to be. My cousin works for the surveying company. She told me they've already picked the location right at the junction of 3 water sources, one of which is your creek, Eli. The room went silent. Eli felt the pieces clicking into place, each one making his blood run colder. If Patterson controls all the water access, he said slowly, he controls where the depot goes. And whoever owns the land around the depot, Josie finished, owns the future of this entire valley. Now you're getting it. Hutchinson sat heavily. That creek of yours isn't just water. It's the key to millions of dollars in railroad contracts, land development, and trade routes. Patterson gets that, he becomes the most powerful man in 3 territories. That's why he's willing to kill for it. Eli's hands clenched. He's not just buying land, he's buying a monopoly. And we're the only thing standing in his way, Josie said. She looked at Hutchinson. Which is why you need us as much as we need you. Because if Patterson gets that creek, he won't stop there. He'll squeeze every independent rancher in this valley until you all either sell or starve. Hutchinson studied her for a long moment. You're a lot smarter than the women my son usually brings around. I'm not his... Sarah started, then stopped. Actually, never mind. She's right, and you know it, Father. I know. Hutchinson sighed. What's your proposal? Alliance. Josie leaned forward, despite her injuries. We pool our resources, share water rights, present a united front. Patterson can't push us all out if we stand together. And the others, the Kemp family, the Wilsons. We bring them in too. Josie's voice gained strength. Every independent rancher in this valley. We form a collective with shared water access and mutual protection. Patterson wants to control everything. We make sure he controls nothing. That's a big ask. Hutchinson's eyes narrowed. Most of these families have been competing for generations. You expect them to just cooperate. I expect them to survive. Josie stood ignoring Sarah's protest. Mr. Hutchinson, you lost your wife to this valley. The Kemps lost their eldest son. The Wilsons nearly lost everything in the drought 3 years ago. Every family here has bled for this land. Are we really going to hand it all over to Tom Patterson because we're too stubborn to work together? The words hung in the air. Hutchinson was quiet for a long time. You're right, he said finally. God help me, you're right. He looked at Eli. I still don't like you, boy. You broke my daughter's heart, and I haven't forgotten it. I know. Eli met his eyes. I was 17 and stupid. If I could go back... You can't. Hutchinson cut him off. But you can move forward. And that woman there, he pointed at Josie. She's worth 100 of whatever you were. Don't screw this up. I don't plan to. Good. Hutchinson extended his hand. Then we have an alliance. Eli shook it, feeling the weight of years of bad blood finally starting to lift. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We've got a lot of work ahead. Hutchinson turned to Sarah. Send word to the Kemps and Wilsons. Tell them we're meeting here tomorrow at noon. And Sarah, tell them it's life or death because it is. Sarah nodded and left. Josie swayed slightly, and Eli was beside her in an instant. You need to rest. I need to help plan? You need to rest, Eli repeated firmly. We've got this. You've done enough for today. For once, Josie didn't argue. She let him guide her to the spare room, and Eli helped her settle onto the bed. That was brilliant, he said quietly. What you did back there. How you convinced him. I just told the truth. Josie's eyes were already closing. Sometimes that's all it takes. You're incredible, you know that. She smiled without opening her eyes. Tell me again when I'm conscious enough to remember it. Eli watched her drift off, this woman who'd crashed into his life and turned everything upside down. She was hurt because of him, targeted because of him. And still she fought beside him without hesitation. He was absolutely, completely in love with her. The realization should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like finally breathing after years underwater. You're staring. Josie's voice was sleep-soft. I can feel it. Sorry. Don't be sorry. Just come here. Eli lay down beside her, careful of her injuries, and she curled into him like she belonged there. Maybe she did. Eli. Her voice was barely a whisper. Yeah. When this is over, when we've beaten Patterson and saved the valley, what happens to us? The question stopped his heart. What do you want to happen? I want real. She opened her eyes, meeting his. I want this to be more than a business arrangement or a marriage of convenience. I want you to actually be my husband, not just on paper. Eli's throat tightened. Josie. You don't have to answer now. She touched his face. I know you're scared. I know losing Margaret broke something in you. But Eli, I'm not asking you to forget her or stop loving her. I'm just asking you to make room for me too. There's already room. The words came out raw. There's been room since the moment you stepped off that stagecoach and called me a coward. I've been fighting it because I'm terrified of losing you the way I lost her. But Josie, you're right. I'm already all in. Have been from the start. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Say it. I love you. The words felt like jumping off a cliff. I love you, and it scares me to death, and I don't know how to be what you need, but I want to try. She kissed him soft and sweet and full of promise. That's all I'm asking. For you to try." They held each other as exhaustion and injuries finally caught up, and Eli let himself believe just for a moment that they might actually survive this. He woke to shouting. Eli bolted upright, immediately reaching for Josie, but she was already up and moving toward the window. "What's happening?" "Riders!" Her voice was tight. "A lot of them." They rushed downstairs to find Hutchinson and Sarah already armed, watching through the windows as at least 20 men surrounded the house. "Patterson?" Eli asked. "Worse." Hutchinson's voice was grim. "That's the sheriff, and he's got a warrant." The front door crashed open before anyone could respond. Sheriff Morrison walked in like he owned the place, a paper in his hand and a smirk on his face. "Eli Tanner, you're under arrest for the murder of Thomas Patterson." The world stopped. "What?" Josie's voice cracked. "Patterson's not dead. He tried to kill us today." "That's not what the witnesses say." Morrison gestured, and 2 of Patterson's men stepped forward. "These gentlemen saw you shoot Patterson in cold blood this morning. Left him for dead out by the old line shack." "That's a lie." Josie moved between Eli and the sheriff. "Patterson ambushed us. He set fire to the building and—" "Save it for the trial, ma'am." Morrison's smile widened. "Now, Tanner, you coming quietly? Or do we do this the hard way?" Eli's mind raced. This was a setup. Patterson wasn't dead. This was just another way to get him off the land. But if he resisted arrest, they'd have an excuse to shoot him right here. "I'll come." He held up his hands. "But you're making a mistake, Morrison. Patterson's alive, and when he shows up, we'll have a body and a murderer." Morrison grabbed Eli's arm. "Funny how convenient that'll be." Understanding hit like a punch to the gut. They weren't just framing him for murder. They were going to actually kill Patterson and make it look like Eli did it. Then Eli would hang. The ranch would go to Josie, and she'd be forced to sell to pay legal fees or face harassment until she broke. It was brilliant and evil and completely foolproof. "Don't do this," Josie said, her voice shaking. "Please, he's innocent." "Tell it to the judge." Morrison dragged Eli toward the door. "Though I hear Judge Crawford's already made up his mind. Something about ranchers who don't know their place needing to be made examples of." Eli caught Josie's eyes, saw the same understanding there, saw her calculating odds and options and coming up empty. "Josie," he said, I'll fix this." Her voice was steel beneath the fear. "I swear to you, Eli, I'll fix this." "There's nothing to fix, ma'am." Morrison pushed Eli outside. "Your husband's a murderer. Accept it and move on." But as they dragged Eli away, he saw Josie turn to Hutchinson with fire in her eyes. Saw her start talking fast, planning, refusing to give up. That's when he knew. No matter what happened to him, she'd fight. She'd win. And Tom Patterson had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The jail cell was cold and dark, and Eli had been there less than an hour when the guard announced a visitor. Margaret walked in. Eli's heart stopped. It wasn't possible. She was dead. He'd buried her 5 years ago. But there she was, older, wearing a simple traveling dress, very much alive. "Hello, Eli." Her voice was exactly as he remembered. "This isn't real." He backed against the wall. "You're dead. I watched you die." "No." Margaret moved closer to the bars. "You watched me leave. There's a difference." "What?" "The fever was real, but I didn't die from it." She gripped the bars. "Tom Patterson came to me while you were out checking the herd. Told me he could save me if I agreed to disappear. Said he needed your land and a grieving widower would sell faster than a married man." Eli couldn't breathe. You agreed?" "I was dying, Eli. Or thought I was. He had medicine, a doctor." Her voice cracked. "I thought I'd be dead within hours anyway. What did it matter if he used my death to pressure you? Except you didn't die. The medicine worked. And by then I was already gone. Patterson had me moved east, set up with a new identity, a monthly stipend to keep quiet." Tears streamed down her face. "I thought about coming back. Every single day I thought about it. But what would I say? How could I explain? So you just let me think you were dead. Eli's voice was hollow. Let me grieve. Let me lock myself away from everything. Let me nearly destroy myself with guilt. I know, Margaret sobbed. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But Eli, I'm here now because Patterson's going to kill you. He told me his plan: frame you for his murder, then actually kill himself and leave evidence pointing to you. He's dying anyway. Some kind of cancer. He's got 6 months at most, and he wants to make sure his family inherits everything before he goes. That's insane. That's Patterson. Margaret pressed against the bars. But Eli, there's a way out. The doctor who saved me, he kept records. Proof that Patterson paid him to fake my death and hide me. If we can get those records to a federal marshal. Why should I believe anything you say? The words came out bitter. You've been lying to me for 5 years. Because despite everything, I still care about you. Margaret's eyes held his. And because your wife came to see me 3 hours ago. Eli's world tilted again. What? Josie? She tracked me down in less than 2 hours, convinced me to come here, and told me that if I didn't help save you, she'd make sure everyone in 3 territories knew I was alive and complicit in Patterson's schemes. Margaret laughed weakly. She's terrifying, Eli, and she loves you more than I ever did. Where is she now? Gone to get the records from the doctor. She should be back by morning with proof that Patterson's a fraud and you're innocent. Margaret reached through the bars. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't even deserve a second of your time, but please let me help fix this. Let me do this one thing right. Eli stared at the woman he'd loved and lost and mourned and felt nothing. No anger, no longing, just a distant sadness for what might have been. Okay, he said. Help us. But Margaret, after this is over, I need you to leave. Really leave. Because the life I'm building now, you're not part of it. She nodded, tears falling. I know. And Eli, she's good for you. Better than I ever was. Don't let her go. I don't plan to. Margaret left, and Eli sank onto the cell's narrow bench, trying to process everything. Margaret was alive. Patterson was dying. Josie was out there risking everything to save him. And somehow, through all the chaos and betrayal and impossible revelations, one truth remained absolutely clear. He loved Josie Callaway with everything he had left to give. And if they survived this, when they survived this, he was going to spend the rest of his life proving it. The guard's voice cut through his thoughts. Another visitor, Tanner. Josie walked in, mud-splattered and exhausted, but her eyes were blazing with triumph. I've got the proof, she said. All of it. Patterson's payments to the doctor, Margaret's medical records, even a signed confession from the doctor himself about the whole scheme. She pressed the papers against the bars. You're getting out of here, Eli. Tonight. How did you? I'm very persuasive when people I love are in danger. She smiled. Also, I may have threatened to shoot the doctor if he didn't cooperate. Turns out Margaret wasn't his only fake death. He's been helping Patterson eliminate competition for years. Josie, you can't just... Watch me. She turned to the guard. Get Sheriff Morrison, now. Tell him if he doesn't release Eli Tanner in the next 10 minutes, I'm taking these documents straight to the federal marshal in Carson City, and everyone in this town who helped Patterson is going down with him. The guard hesitated, then ran. Josie turned back to Eli, her smile fierce and beautiful. Told you I'd fix it. You're insane. I'm in love. She reached through the bars, catching his hands. There's a difference. Eli pulled her close as the bars would allow and kissed her like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. When I get out of here, when you get out of here, we're getting married. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Really married. Not the business arrangement we started with. An actual wedding with vows and promises and forever. I thought we were already married. On paper. I want the real thing. Her voice softened. "I want you to choose me, Eli. Fully. Completely. No more hiding behind walls or fear or grief. Just us. I choose you." The words came easy as breathing. "I chose you the moment you stepped off that stagecoach and refused to be what I asked for. I've been choosing you every day since. I just took too long to say it. Say it now. I choose you, Josie Callaway. Today and every day after. For real and forever, and however long we've got." He kissed her again. "You're stuck with me now." "Good." She grinned through happy tears. "Because Patterson's about to learn what happens when you mess with the Tanners." Morrison arrived moments later reading the documents with a face that went progressively paler. This can't be real." "It's real." Josie's voice was pure steel. "And you have two choices. Release my husband now and help us bring Patterson to justice, or go down as an accomplice to fraud, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Your call, Sheriff." Morrison's hands shook. "Patterson's gonna kill me. Patterson's dying anyway." Josie stepped closer. "But if you help us, you might just save your career and stay out of prison. Clock's ticking." The cell door opened. Eli stepped out of the cell and pulled Josie into his arms, breathing her in like she was the only real thing left in the world. Morrison stood there clutching the documents, his face the color of old ash. "What do you need me to do?" the sheriff asked quietly. "Where's Patterson right now?" Josie pulled back from Eli just enough to focus on Morrison. "His ranch. He's been holed up there since this morning, waiting for news that Tanner was arrested." Morrison swallowed hard. "He's got at least 15 men with him, maybe more." "Then we go there." Eli reached for his gun belt, but Morrison had already retrieved it. "Tonight, before he knows his plan fell apart." "That's suicide!" Morrison's voice cracked. "Even with the evidence, he'll just kill you and claim self-defense. You're an escaped murderer in the eyes of everyone who doesn't know the truth." "Not escaped." Josie took the documents from Morrison's shaking hands. "Released on evidence of a frame-up by a corrupt landowner. And we're not going alone." She walked to the window and whistled sharp and clear. Within seconds, riders emerged from the darkness. Hutchinson and his sons, the Kemp brothers, the Wilson family, and at least 20 more ranchers Eli recognized from across the valley. "How did you?" Eli started. "I sent word before I came to the jail." Josie's smile was fierce. "Told them if they wanted to save their land and their futures, they'd better be ready to fight for it. Turns out people respond well when you give them something worth fighting for." Hutchinson rode forward. "We're with you, Tanner, all of us. Patterson's been bleeding this valley dry for too long." "This could get ugly," Eli warned. "It's already ugly." Old Man Kemp spoke up, his voice gravelly. "My boy lost his hand in one of Patterson's accidents. I'm ready to return the favor." Morrison looked at the assembled riders, then back at the evidence in Josie's hands. "I'll go with you. Make it official. But we do this by the law arrests, not executions." "Agreed." Josie mounted her horse. "But Morrison, if Patterson starts shooting, all bets are off. We protect our own." They rode as a group, 30 strong, the sound of hoofbeats like thunder across the valley. Eli kept Josie close, his hand never far from his gun, his heart hammering against his ribs. "You should have stayed back," he said quietly. "And missed the finale, not a chance." She glanced at him. "Besides, you need me. I'm the one with the evidence, remember? I need you alive." "Then keep me that way." She smiled. "Together, right?" "Together." Patterson's ranch appeared like a fortress in the moonlight. Every window lit, armed men visible on the porch and in the yard. They saw the riders coming and formed a defensive line, rifles raised. Tom Patterson himself stepped out, leaning heavily on a cane Eli had never seen him use before. In the lamplight, he looked older, grayer, like the cancer was eating him from the inside out. "Well, well." Patterson's voice carried across the yard. "The dead man walks. Morrison, you're dumber than I thought letting him out." "It's over, Tom." Morrison's voice was surprisingly steady. "We've got proof of everything. The fake death, the doctor's records. Margaret Tanner alive and willing to testify. You're finished." Patterson's laugh was ugly. "You think that matters? I own this valley. I own the railroad contract. Hell, I own half the territorial government. No judge is going to convict me based on papers from a mail-order bride and a disgraced sheriff. Federal marshal might feel different." Josie rode forward, and Eli's heart stopped. Especially when he sees documented evidence of fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy, and bribery going back 15 years. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Josie held up the documents. "Your doctor kept meticulous records, Patterson. Every death you faked, every family you destroyed, every bribe you paid. It's all here, dated and signed. And I've already sent copies to 3 different marshals just in case something happens to these." Patterson's face went purple. "You little..." "Careful." Eli's voice cut like a blade. "That's my wife you're talking to, and I'm done letting you threaten her." "Your wife?" Patterson sneered. "The woman who was supposed to be plain and forgettable looks like you got more than you bargained for Tanner. Bet you wish you'd stuck with the safe choice now." "Best mistake I ever made." Eli met Josie's eyes. "She's the only real thing in my life, and you're not taking her from me." Touching. Patterson raised his hand, and his men lifted their rifles. "But I'm dying anyway. Got maybe 6 months if I'm lucky. You think I care about prison? About consequences? I'd rather burn this whole valley down than let you win." "Then you'll burn alone." Hutchinson rode up beside Eli. "Because every rancher here is standing against you. You want a war, Tom? You'll get one. But you'll lose, and you know it." "I never lose." Patterson's eyes glittered with madness. "I've spent 20 years building this empire. I'm not handing it over to you people." "You don't have a choice." Josie's voice rang out clear and strong. "The railroad knows about your schemes. I sent them the evidence this afternoon along with a proposal from the Valley Collective, shared water rights, fair land prices, cooperative development. They jumped at it, said they'd rather work with honest ranchers than a dying criminal." The silence that followed was absolute. Patterson swayed on his feet. "You're lying." "I'm really not." Josie pulled out a telegram. "Signed and dated. The railroad depot goes where we say it goes. And Tom, we're not saying your land." Patterson's cane clattered to the porch. "You can't, this isn't..." "It's over." Morrison stepped forward. "Tom Patterson, I'm arresting you for fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges. You can come quietly, or we can do this the hard way." "The hard way it is." Patterson reached for his gun. Everything happened at once. Patterson's men scattered, some dropping their weapons, others raising them. Eli threw himself in front of Josie as shots rang out. Someone screamed. Horses reared. And then, impossibly, silence. Patterson lay on the porch, his own gun fallen from nerveless fingers, blood spreading across his chest. But no one had shot him. He'd collapsed on his own, the cancer and rage and desperation finally taking their toll. "Get a doctor," Morrison shouted, but Patterson was already shaking his head. Too late. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Always too late. Josie dismounted and walked to the porch, Eli right behind her. She knelt beside Patterson, her face solemn. "Why?" she asked quietly. "You had money, land power. Why destroy so many lives for more?" Patterson's laugh was wet and broken. "Because it was never enough. Because no matter how much I had, someone always had something I didn't." His eyes found Eli. "Your father wouldn't sell to me. Said some things aren't for sale. I hated him for that. Hated that he had principles when all I had was greed." "So you spent 20 years trying to take what he wouldn't give." Eli's voice was flat. "And it killed you." "It killed me the day I chose money over everything else." Patterson's breathing rattled. But you're different. You found something worth more than land, worth more than power. He looked at Josie. Take care of him. God knows he needs it. Then he was gone, and the valley's greatest threat ended not with violence, but with the quiet surrender of a man who'd lost everything that mattered while gaining everything that didn't. Morrison called it in, and the federal marshals arrived 3 days later to sort through the wreckage of Patterson's empire. They found evidence of crimes spanning 2 decades, victims across 3 territories, and a network of corruption that reached farther than anyone had imagined. But they also found something else. A will dated a week before Patterson died, leaving his entire estate to the Valley Collective for the establishment of a community trust. He knew he was dying, the lead marshal explained. This was his way of making amends, or maybe just his way of making sure his family didn't inherit his sins. Josie read the will carefully, then looked at Eli. We could refuse it. We could. Eli studied the document. Or we could use it to build something better. Turn his greed into something good. A school? Josie's eyes lit up. And a hospital. And proper irrigation for the smaller ranches. Everything this valley needs but couldn't afford. Everything he should have built instead of destroying people. Eli pulled her close. Yeah, let's do that. The Valley Collective grew stronger over the following months. The railroad came through as promised, bringing prosperity and growth and opportunity. The depot went up at the junction of 3 water sources, and every rancher in the valley shared in the profits. Hutchinson and Eli buried their old grudge over shared work and shared success. Sarah married one of the Kemp brothers, and her father finally smiled again. The Wilson family expanded their operation. New families moved in, drawn by the promise of fair dealings and community support. And through it all, Eli and Josie worked side by side, building not just a ranch, but a life. Margaret had left the valley quietly after giving her testimony, and Eli had finally unlocked the room upstairs. He'd packed away her things with respect, but without grief, making space for the future instead of clinging to the past. On a bright morning in early autumn, the whole valley gathered at the old church for a wedding. Not the legal ceremony that had bound Eli and Josie in a contract, but the real thing, vows and promises, and forever. Josie wore a simple dress made by Sarah's skilled hands, her auburn hair finally tamed into something resembling order, her eyes bright with joy. Eli wore his best suit and a smile that hadn't left his face in days. "Dearly beloved," the preacher began, but Josie held up her hand. "Actually, I'd like to say something first, if that's all right." The preacher blinked. Certainly." Josie turned to face Eli, fully taking both his hands. "When I came here, I was running from a life where I didn't matter, where I was just decoration or property or something to be managed. I answered your advertisement because I thought at least it would be honest, a business arrangement between 2 practical people." She smiled through sudden tears. "But Eli, you gave me so much more than honesty. You gave me partnership, purpose, a fight worth fighting, and a life worth living. You saw me not as the woman you ordered, but as the woman I actually am, and you chose me anyway. I chose you because you're impossible to ignore." Eli's voice was rough with emotion. "Because you walked into my death of a life and refused to let me stay buried. Because you're brave and brilliant and stubborn and everything I never knew I needed. We've been through fire together. Literally." Josie laughed. "We've been shot at, threatened, arrested, and nearly killed more times than I can count. And through all of it, you never once treated me like I was fragile or less than. You treated me like an equal. You are an equal." Eli squeezed her hands. "Better than equal. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it." "Then let's make it official." Josie turned to the preacher. "Now you can do the ceremony part." The preacher laughed and proceeded with the vows. But everyone present knew the real promises had already been made in barn fires and gunfights, in late-night planning sessions, and early morning fence repairs. In every moment these 2 people had chosen to stand together instead of apart. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, the kiss that followed was met with cheers and applause from a valley full of people who'd watched two broken souls put each other back together. The reception lasted until sunset, with music and dancing and more food than anyone could eat. Hutchinson gave a toast about second chances. Sarah cried happy tears. Even Morrison showed up sober and cleaned up ready to start fresh as a sheriff who actually served justice instead of money. As the stars came out, Eli and Josie slipped away from the celebration, riding back to their ranch, truly, theirs now built on partnership instead of survival. "So," Josie said, as they stood on the porch, looking out at land that stretched toward the horizon, "what do we do now? Now?" Eli pulled her close. "Now we live. Really live. We work the land, raise some cattle, maybe even have a family if you want. We help our neighbors grow old together, and never take a single day for granted." Sounds perfect. She leaned into him. "Though I reserve the right to keep fighting with you when you're being stubborn. I'd be disappointed if you didn't." Eli kissed the top of her head. "Josie, I spent 5 years trying not to feel anything, trying to protect myself from loss by refusing to love. And then you showed up and destroyed every wall I'd built, and I fought you every step of the way because I was terrified. And now I'm still terrified." He turned her to face him. "Because loving you means risking losing you, and that scares me more than anything. But Josie, living without you scares me more. So I'm choosing the risk. I'm choosing you, today and every day after, for as long as we've got. That's all anyone gets, Eli." She touched his face gently. "No guarantees, no promises that tomorrow comes. Just the choice to love each other fiercely while we can. And that's enough. It has to be enough because it's everything." "It's everything," he agreed. They stood together as the stars wheeled overhead, two people who'd come together out of desperation and convenience and built something real. Something worth fighting for. Something that would last, not because it was easy, but because they chose it every single day. The valley around them hummed with life and possibility, built on the ashes of greed and watered by the determination of people who refused to give up. And at the heart of it all, Eli and Josie Tanner stood together, proof that sometimes the best things in life are the ones you never planned for. Somewhere in the darkness, Eli thought he heard his father's voice on the wind, proud and approving. And maybe Margaret's too, wishing him well from whatever life she'd built in the East. The past had its place honored, but not imprisoning, remembered, but not ruling. The future stretched ahead, unknown and uncertain, and absolutely worth pursuing. "Ready to start our life together?" Josie asked, her hand in his. "I've been ready since the moment you stepped off that stagecoach and called me a coward." Eli smiled. "Took me a while to admit it, though." "Good thing I'm patient." "You're many things, Josie Tanner. Patient isn't one of them." She laughed, and the sound filled the night with joy. "Fair point. But I'm yours, and you're mine, and that's all that matters." They walked into the house together, partners in every sense of the word, ready to face whatever came next with the same fierce determination that had brought them this far. The door closed behind them, shutting out the past and embracing the future, and the ranch settled into peaceful silence. Love had saved them both, not by making life easy, but by making it worth the fight. And together, Eli and Josie Tanner would build a legacy not of land or money or power, but of partnership, courage, and the unshakable truth that sometimes the greatest strength comes from choosing to open your heart even when everything tells you to keep it closed. They had found each other against all odds, fought for each other through impossible circumstances, and chosen each other every single day, and that choice, renewed again and again, was the foundation of everything they would build together.